It's like when I was a boy, I know y'all was all good kids and y'all never heard this,
Right.
but I heard it quite frequently, pretty much about every 5 minutes. When your daddy gets home, he gonna get you. And man, it got to where I didn't want to see my daddy coming home, because I knew I had something coming. Years ago, and I've told some of y'all about some of my dreams, and bottom line in the deal, the dreams of the end times have always been real, and they've never been, for me, a positive, uplifting experience. It's like, sometimes I think that the dreams were shown to me as an intimidation, and I know where they centered from. They centered from a class that I sit as a young man, probably Axton's age, in this room right here. And this guy was telling the story, and I was a little bit older than Axton because I was old enough to know the guy's daughters. And he was, at the time, the preacher of Second Baptist Church. And he was going to do a sermon on the Antichrist and Satan, and do a series of teachings on these things. And he said that the guy had received a warning that you don't need to go down this road, because if you do, I'm coming after you. And knowing the guy's daughters and knowing how they were and what kind of girls they were, and then seeing how later on he was no longer pastor. Because I'll tell you honestly, if you've ever been a manager or whatever of a bigger company, and I seen it firsthand. You work your entire career building your career up to where you are in a supervisory role or a management role or president role of whatever company it is. And if something happens and you lose your job, you don't go out and find that good job again, because they can hire 14 new people for what the older people are costing them. And so I've seen it so many times, more particularly so on being pastors. And I call them, career pastors. I told you the story about a friend of mine. He told me, he says, Monty, do you believe that God has called you out? And I was like, well, yeah, that's what I'd like to think. Because honestly, I'd hate to know that I've done all this and it not be my calling. It's just kind of a waste of my time. I mean, was God calling me to be something else? I don't know. I'm here. But the thing is that he said, then what you do, Monty, he says, you've got to start with a small church. And he says, you start learning your experience in a small church, and then you move to a bigger church, and then you move to a bigger church. And he said, eventually, you will have worked yourself up to where you're a pastor of a bigger church, and then you can be full-time staff, and that's how you get paid. That's the career goals of these ministers. They use each church as a stepping stone to get to the next church. The problem is that when you get to that big church, we've all seen it. Some of us have experienced, some of us have been really experienced through it. And you get involved in it, and you lose that position in that big church. You don't go to a bigger church. You go down to the smaller churches. Then you go to the smaller churches, because what happens to you, and I've seen it firsthand, the guys who lose the big churches, when they go down to the smaller churches, they're now angry pastors. They're angry because, for whatever reason, and their ministry evolves into this ministry of anger. And then they lose that job, and for long they're done or quit preaching, and they get somewhere off in left field because they're, hurt, whatever. Amber was telling me a story about a guy who just recently got on fire, started joining the church. Can I talk about this a second? And the thing is that he started working with the youth because that church needed something. Well, apparently somebody's feelings, and I'm going to tell you something. I tell you honestly, it's being in the ministry, if you're not prepared to get your guts torn out, by some mama, usually it's a mama protecting some stupid kid. And I could tell you stories that had happened to me, you know. And the thing is that I had to face it, and I'm very fortunate that, you know, I guess because I was thick-headed, Lance, and stubborn. I mean, she bothered me, but it's like, ain't my first upset mama that I had at me. I had a crazy mama. My mama was upset at me every day, so your mama ain't nothing new. But the thing is that I could see it. So this guy here was basically removed from the ministry because of a mama and because of a spoiled boy. And now this guy don't go back to church. I mean, he was just recently on fire, and now he's done and gone. Well, you got to understand something. What's really the mechanism behind all this thing? You know, it's the whole point of, number one, you got to be tough. Number two, you got to be determined. Number three is you got to know. You got to know that when the only way I can tell you that you're effective in ministry is when your ministry is in a constant state of falling apart, or somebody's always griping, well, I don't like this and I don't like that. But you know, people always will gripe about what they don't have and how things are working out, and you said this, my kid, but you don't see them doing anything about it. You don't see them trying to make changes. You don't see them trying to make a contribution to the overall thing. Why? Because we fail to see what's the real story. I myself, having seen a little bit of what I fear to be my end and how this thing works, I tend to, even this morning, I'll be perfectly honest with you, Chase, when I seen that you was going to be late, I was like, because part of me said, do I even want to record today? Do I want to record today? Do I want to go down this road? Well, I mean, honestly, I've already been down this road, so here I go again. I mean, it's, only things I can tell you is I am not one of those, I do not advocate anything as far as some of these crazies getting out there, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I've always told you guys, you leave me and mine alone, I'll leave you and yours alone. But you mess with me and mine, I'm probably not going to be nice because I got too many years of holding it inside, Dark. I've held it inside for way too long, and I'm really afraid the first person that's going to push me over that line is going to get, yeah, it's going to be worse than that. And it will be the sharp point, too. I always told Artie, there's a joke that you can always tell my level of threat assessment. If I'm facing a situation of threat assessment, and Amber's seen it before, when I met Smith Ford, I always carried a pen in my pocket like this, Dark. Because in martial arts, you learn to apply the least amount of pressure, the most amount of pressure in the least, smallest area. And you'd be surprised what you can do with a pen. But if you ever hear me, if I'm standing there talking to a customer or talking to a person facing a confrontation, and you're hearing me do this, that's called threat assessment, in case you don't know.
Yep.
Because I'm deciding where we're going to go with this threat. And so this was relatively safe. That I'm going to poke through you. And I was trying to decide how am I going to defend myself against this thing. One of the things that I work with Axton on is Axton will come in like last night. He finally caught it last night because yesterday we cooked hamburgers and hot dogs and french fries. So there on the counter is two big aluminum pans, Emily, with aluminum, tinfoil on top, right? That would be a clue. So if Lance walked in, Lance was hungry, I say, well, Lance, there's something in there. And Lance would walk in there. By that point in your life, you would see this aluminum pan, and you would know that odds are that that's where the food is. So Axton came in last night, he says, because he's got his tea thing, and Mimi has made him some potatoes. So I'm in the bathroom, he comes in and Axton says, Papa, where's the potatoes? I said, out in Mimi's car. Okay, and he goes in and he finds them. Yay, because I'm trying to teach him to think. Because earlier when he walked in and he was looking for the hot dogs and the french fries, They couldn't find them. Because again, our children and even us do not pay attention to what's going on around us. Why? Because we're so involved and so engrossed in our world, we really don't even think about what's going on around us. I love the imagery that Dar shared with me several weeks ago about the vision that he was shown, and this thing that he was shown to be aware of. Today we're going to talk about what I see. And I'll be honest with you, and I'll tell you how this thing started. I was in I was in Home Depot. And I seen this guy over there looking, and I could tell he was talking to this guy on the phone. And what he was trying to do, he was trying to mount brackets. He's going to put shelves in his shop. And he was looking for a screw that would screw through the brackets. The brackets had hole in them, but on the backside, he had the metal beams of the shop. And he was wanting a screw to screw through that metal that could support his shelves. And the problem is he had like 50-something brackets that he had drilled the holes through. And now he can't find the screws that will accomplish this thing. And I'm sitting there listening to the guy. And Carrie, I'm trying to learn how to keep my opinions to myself when I watch people look for stuff. And the guy was sitting there, and he finally got a phone, and he said something. He said, "Hey man, help me out here." I'm like, "Oh boy, here you ask my opinion now." And so I was telling him, I said, "Well, honestly," I said, I wouldn't use any kind of self-drilling screws to go in the metal because I've never had good success with them. If I'm going to mount brackets up to metal, I'm going to bolt them up. Because so many times I've tried to drill through heavy metal, and try to run a screw in, it breaks off every time. And it always does it, or it strips the head out. It always messes you up, and then now you've got half of your stuff stuck there, and you're like, okay, now I've got this head stripped off, and now you're just messed up. Sometimes it's better to bite the bullet. So I'm just going through all this stuff, and I looked at him, I said, "Do I know you?" Because his voice was familiar. And I wasn't even aware that what this turn was getting ready to do. I didn't know what was getting ready to happen. And this is the guy that I've known for a long time. Old friend. Not a friend, but an old acquaintance. I've known him for a long time. And he used to have a tire shop, Robert Wilcox. And the thing is that he started telling me about his story in the whole 9 yards. And I said, "So what are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm in law." He said, "I'm in law enforcement, but I'm getting out." He says, "I'm done." I said, "So what do you mean you're getting out? Why are you done?" He says, "I've had enough." And I said, "What do you mean?" Where are you going, Axel? Okay, because I want you to hear this, so just hurry up. He started telling me this story. Before I go down this story, I'm going to tell you how this whole thing ends. I'm going to tell you the end of this story. So somebody go to Revelation chapter 16, verses 14 through 16. I told you guys we was going to do a study on the end times. I think the best way to do the study on the end times is to tell you how the book ends. And then that way you know how everything works out. So somebody read Revelation 16, verse 14 through 16.
For they are spirits of devils, working miracles, which go forth into the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather to the battle of the great day of God Almighty. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon.
Okay. We are introduced to a set of players. the players were people who were, for lack of a better word, demonic, because they were spirits. So the players are this. We have a group of people, in essence, who are possessed. They are being guided, they are being manipulated. What was their goal? Their goal, they went to the rulers, the influencers, what's going on at Hendricks right now? Streamers. And do you not find that it's interesting where they're at? You can take it however you want to take it. All right? But they are the politicians. They are the leaders. They are deceiving them. And they are causing them to rise up. There is a phrase in the last verse, and it said, what did it say? He was going to do what? He was going to gather them up. So, Emily, it tells of a person that is guiding all this, correct? He is going to be gathering them up. Where is he going to draw this from? Where is he going to draw this pull from? So, think about this thing. We've got a war, right? This is the end time war. So, I'll make it easy, if we take the representation of good, then we'll have, it's good versus what? Evil. So then, his pull is going to be, if our pull is basically the church, then where is his pull going to be drawn from? Say what now? No, not the world. The pool. In other words, God's army is not going to be drawn from the world. It's going to be drawn from the church. So then what is Satan's? It's going to be drawn from his church. If we are called Christians, then what is his pool? Satan's. There you go. The thing is that he will be deceiving them. That's what they say. They will be deceived. The great deception is now that Satan... All right, I'm going to back up here on this. There was a time that they did a study on why rock and roll music is no longer as influential as what it once was. Reason being is that they seen that rock was a form of rebellion, and it rebelled against what their society and what their parents would listen to, and it was a rebellion. The problem is that these kids started seeing their parents listening to their music. So guess what it is? It's no longer a form of rebellion. So what is the thing that became the source of rebellion? The music got darker, the music got heavier. It started having more and more cuss words, more and more other symbolisms. Then all of a sudden you've got it mixed in at different levels, and you see it mixed in if this is good, and then if this one is evil, and the closer you got to this thing, the more evil the imagery becomes. I was watching this the other day. There was a guy And his name is Charlie Crockett. Has anybody heard about this or read about this?